The film begins with Mallory instructing her children that they have a long journey ahead, through fire, and they must not speak, make noise, or open their eyes until they reach their destination. She takes birds with her and puts them in a box as they begin their journey on their boat while keeping their eyes closed. This moment shows Mallory 5 years earlier, calm and serene, pregnant and unaware of the catastrophe that has struck the world. Her sister Jessica opens the news, revealing a phenomenon of mass suicides occurring without reason, with the death toll reaching into the tens of thousands. Mallory is unconcerned, as the news reports most deaths are in Russia. She visits the doctor to check on her baby and sees someone on the phone normally. On the way back, she witnesses a woman who was also on the phone suddenly crash her head into a window. Mallory rushes to her sister's car, realizing that what is happening in Russia is occurring here too. They flee the hospital and find chaos in the streets. Jessica's phone rings from her bag behind her seat, and as Mallory reaches for it, Jessica sees something up front that disturbs her. Her eyes change, and she attempts to commit suicide, causing the car to crash. Mallory escapes the car, but she watches in horror as her sister throws herself in front of the vehicle and dies. A wave of panic and seizures spreads among the people as they flee from an unknown threat. A stranger tries to help Mallory, but she witnesses him become transfixed by something, sitting in a car engulfed in flames before it explodes. Another person helps her, advising her to keep her eyes down. They run to the nearest house, where they find many others gathered in confusion, trying to understand what is happening. They learn that something is affecting the nervous system, leading to the suicides. Mallory meets Tom and confides in him about her sister's fate and the woman who tried to save her, who is Douglas's wife, another individual in the house. 3 days pass, and they hear a knock at the door, realizing someone is still alive outside. They ask the person outside to cover their eyes while they prepare to open the door, which turns out to be a pregnant woman named Olympia, who had to leave her home when their food ran out. The group is also facing food shortages, and someone suggests that the phenomenon affects people directly through their eyes, so watching through surveillance cameras may not have any impact on the nervous system. One individual decides to gamble by looking directly at the cameras to see if he will be affected. Shortly after, a loud noise occurs, and he is found to have committed suicide too. Returning to Mallory's story, after 14 hours on the river with her children blindfolded, they are attacked by a man standing on the riverbank, trying to remove their blindfolds. He shows signs of being affected by whatever the thing is. Mallory manages to grab a knife, stab him, and escape, continuing her journey. Back with Tom, they are looking for a way to gather more food. Charlie mentions he works at a nearby supermarket and has the keys. They decide to darken all the car windows and use GPS to navigate. However, midway there, they feel as though something is circling around the car, causing them to drive fast until they reach the supermarket. They get out, all still with their eyes closed, and follow Charlie to the entrance. Inside, they gather food and supplies until they find a birdcage. Suddenly, they hear a man calling for help from the back door. They decide to let him in, but the birds begin to panic, and they sense something is wrong. The man bursts in, insisting they have to look at him. He clearly exhibits signs of agitation, and they try to prevent him from entering. In the chaos, Charlie tries to shove him out, but is killed in the process. Returning home at the end of the day, a commotion is heard in the garage. They discover 2 of their own had escaped from the car after 24 hours on the river. They collide with a submerged car by the riverbank, causing the child to drop their food and blankets, which Mallory rescues. However, she needs to find more blankets and food in nearby houses. She warns the 2 children to stay on the boat no matter what until she returns and finds a nearby shelter by the river. She collects all the blankets there, but feels someone outside. Forced to close her eyes, she runs back to the boat, brandishing her gun and firing into the air as she escapes. At the same time, one of the girls leaves the boat to search for Mallory after hearing gunfire, but ties herself to a rope to return safely. Mallory pulls the girl back just in time, bringing her back on board. Suddenly, a man named Gary arrives at their shelter. She allows him to enter without informing anyone, simply because he is scared. The others protest and blame Olympia for letting him in. Gary explains that he had been hiding in a friend's house until a group of mentally deranged individuals from a criminal insane asylum invaded, becoming soldiers of the creature. Their mission is to attack houses and force anyone to look at it until Gary managed to escape, knocking on houses until he reached them. Douglas, however, objects to allowing newcomers into the houses. In a confrontation, they hit Douglas over the head with a vase and lock him in the garage. After 38 hours on the river, they arrive at a rapid section with many potholes where someone must look out to give directions. Mallory then has to choose one of the 2 children to open their eyes and navigate the river. As it coincides with Olympia's labor, everyone turns to look, except for Gary, the newcomer. He behaves oddly, pulling out drawings from his bag. His eyes change, and he takes the birds away while removing papers from the windows. Tom notices sunlight coming from the hallway and goes to check, only for Gary to attack him from behind, striking him and tearing down the curtains from the windows. Olympia sees the entity, and while she is affected, Mallory intervenes to save Natalie, Olympia's daughter, before Olympia reaches the window and jumps out. Douglas, armed and eyes closed, intercepts Gary, but they tumble down the stairs, and Gary stabs Douglas in the chest with a pair of scissors. Douglas dies trying to reach for his gun, but Tom is faster, seizing it to shoot Gary. Tom goes to check on Mallory and the children, taking care of them along with Mallory. 5 years later, they adapt to their new way of life, trying to avoid the deranged individuals. One day, they hear on the radio a man named Ray speaking about a safe place at the end of the river, explaining the route would take 2 days, making the rapids the toughest part of the journey. They decide to move toward this location, but Mallory is scared and objects to traveling. The following day, while gathering food from nearby houses, they are ambushed by the mentally ill individuals. Tom urges Mallory and the children to escape through the back door while he confronts their attackers, fighting off and killing them all. But he is consumed with the creature as well. Before he can take his own life, he manages to kill the last of the deranged individuals. Mallory decides to begin the river journey, placing the responsibility on Olympia's daughter to help watch, hoping she can manage to save her son. However, she ultimately decides no one will look, and they will try to pass through the rapids with their eyes closed. During the journey, the boat tips, and they get separated. She pleads with them to call out or scream so she can find them, eventually locating her son. Mallory searches for the girl, discovering her on the riverbank. She continues through the forest, hearing voices urging her to remove her blindfold. While walking, she trips and falls off a hillside. As soon as she recovers, she scrambles looking for her children, desperately insisting no one open their eyes. She finally reaches her son and begs the girl to follow her voice. As they navigate together, moving blindly, they find a building and discover it is the Janie Tucker School for the Blind. Upon entering, she finds many people and children, just as Tom had dreamed, finally feeling safe and at ease watching her children play. If you've reached so far in our video, you're officially awesome. Thanks for sticking around with Chat Craze. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to leave a nice comment. Until next time.